and welcome to the Fat Squirrel Speaks. Today is Saturday, June 16th. I am Amy Beth, June 15th. I'm Amy Beth, also known as the Fat Squirrel on Ravelry and the Fat SQRRL on Instagram. Thanks for coming over. June is Juning hard. We had like a beautiful, mild June, and then all of a sudden it's like, ha 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 ha, 90 degrees. So there is displeasure. I definitely am in the mood to be very comforted by clothing. Does anybody else get that? I know some of you do. I'm in the mood to feel like pressure, like constrictive clothing. Like, not constrictive sounds like it's uncomfortable, like it's pantyhose out of an egg. I don't mean that. I mean just like compression. That's the word. But it's too hot. And so, like, when I was thinking about where to podcast from, I was like, I just want to podcast from a corner and just be pressed against the corner. That's probably not visually very exciting for y'all. So we'll do our best, but I do feel a little bit like I am expanding into space in a way that is not pleasant. So, yeah, I guess I'll just go and talk about it because I can't go ahead and talk about it. I was going to talk about this later and then like cut it in, but apparently I can't formulate thoughts because this is like a roadblock. So I'll just say now. So this is just like a little bit of personal / family stuff. Everybody, all the humans are fine. So if you're not interested, totally feel free to skip forward. And if you are, I'm going to talk about the loss of one of our dogs. So if that's something you are not in the headspace to hear right now, please also skip forward. But last time we talked, Annie was not doing well. Annie is our older dog, or was our older dog. She was 14, so I've had her the whole time I've had the podcast. She was my first dog that I had as an adult. So yeah, she was a very good dog. When the kiddo was little, we have a four square, all 4 of our rooms are connected. Downstairs, and when the teen was little, lots of energy, like excessive energy, so there was just like running of laps around the central area, like around the house. And Annie was probably weaned a little too early, so she kind of had like a mouth thing for quite a while. She had a little trouble, even though I was pretty strict with her because the kiddo was little when we got Annie. But she would always run with like a toy in her mouth so that she wouldn't be tempted. I'm assuming so she wouldn't be tempted to bite or put her teeth on the kid. And she did that like for her whole life. Like even when she was playing with the other dogs, if they were roughhousing, she would always put a toy in her mouth. And then even though Gus was a total jerk and deserved to probably be nipped. Anyway, I'm sorry. She's a very good dog. And she's had really good health her whole life. We've been super lucky. We always joke that she was our tank dog. Both of our other dogs have had health problems that Annie never had. She was just a great dog. And she had, let's see, a couple of months ago, she developed this like nodule on like behind her left arm, and it got like really big, really fast. And I mean, it seemed like overnight it went from not being there to being like a ping pong. So we took her to the vet, of course, and they checked it out, and they did the it doesn't seem like it's anything scary. They did like a needle biopsy and didn't see anything. And they said, do you just want to keep an eye on it, see if it gets bigger, see if it goes away. So we monitored it, and then I just felt like I needed to take her in and get it taken off because it was making me uncomfortable, that it was there and I didn't know what it was. So we took her in, had it removed. She came home and it was totally encapsulated when they removed it. But we did want to have it biopsied, so they sent it to the pathologist. It did come back that it was cancer. but it had good margins. It was very much encapsulated. They didn't have to like go into the bone or anything. Like it was, the surgery was super simple. It was basically just, I mean, she had an incision site, but like they didn't have to like go into her body space at all. She was like up and going so fast. Like she just was like, nothing had happened like for the few days after the surgery, and then she started getting sick. She started throwing up and having some issues. But when we talked to the vet, they were like, well, it's probably, you know, it could be related to the anesthesia or the antibiotic or what have you. And then just within no time at all, she was really not doing well. When we took her in, they were unsure what was wrong. They, you know, it was like, well, is it congestive heart failure? Because that can sometimes happen in older dogs when they go under anesthesia, and it can kind of like escalate that timeline for if they've had heart problems, because she's had a murmur before. Or is it something like a pancreatitis or something? Because like that was sort of the symptoms she was having, was more of the pancreatitis. And they'd done all the blood work, of course, before she had surgery, and they didn't see anything there. So they gave her an antiemetic and sent her home over the weekend, and then like we would go back on Monday, figure out what was, and go from there. Because if it was the pancreatitis, they would normally give her fluids. She was drinking, but she wasn't eating. But of course, if it was congestive heart failure, if they give her fluids, that could make it much worse. So we're kind of like, let's do this like less invasive thing first and see if it's okay. Well, Monday we took her in because she was not getting better. She was super weak. She wouldn't get up to go outside. She didn't seem like she was in any pain, but she was really, really not herself. So we took her in Monday to get the x-ray, because that would be what would tell us if it was showing enlargement of her heart or what have you. And at that time we found out that it was not her heart. Heart was fine, her lungs were fine, but that there was something going on in her abdomen, which they couldn't tell from the x-ray, but did not look good. So we went from our vet to the emergency vet, and she just got like more exhausted just from, I think, being, I mean, we carried her. I didn't let her walk, but we carried her everywhere, but she just got more and more exhausted. And like her coloring had always been good, like in her gums and stuff, but I noticed that as we were waiting for the emergency vet, that her just getting paler, like her tongue looked pale, and they took her in, and by the time they assessed her, they couldn't get her oxygen up. And they did an ultrasound to see what was going on in her abdomen, and she had multiple masses of cancer, and there was fluid in her abdomen, which was blood tinged. So they couldn't, and they had to keep her in the pressurized oxygen kennel, because they couldn't get her stats up. So we had to say goodbye, and it was really unexpected. I shouldn't say it was really unexpected, but it was unexpected. So yeah, it was really hard. So if you think this is inappropriate, or like maybe that was too much information, I understand. I kind of went back and forth about like, how much to say, or like whatever. Who knows what you're supposed to do, right? Like, I don't know the framework within which I'm existing. I don't know how to figure anything out. But so yeah, that might be too much information. So yeah, it's been rough. Luckily, very much luckily, the teen was home from college for just a few weeks, because they actually went back for summer term. So I'm so thankful that We were together because there would have not been time to get there and get back and have, so we were all together, and that was something that I'm really, such a good dog. So anyway, so yeah, that's probably too much information, or whatever could be considered that. But part of the thing that I enjoy about YouTube and videos like this that I see other people do is that, you know, in a place in our, for a lot of us, we don't have a lot of interpersonal connection. And like lots of times our interpersonal connections are slightly more casual. And so we kind of see what people present to us via, well, for this, like, right, I'm clearly curating what I'm presenting to you. But sometimes that looks really together and going forward, no problems, and all of that stuff. And like, sometimes we just don't know how other people are navigating the messier parts of our days. And like, sometimes those things are not things I want to share with you. But also it's sometimes helpful just to see somebody else go through something, not like in a voyeuristic way, but in like a, oh, I lost my dog and I really grieved for them, but other people in my life don't seem to have that reaction or think that it's affecting me more than it should, or, you know, those kinds of things. It's just helpful to see somebody else trying to figure out how to navigate. I don't know. Maybe it's helpful, maybe it's not. Whatever. We're just trying our best, right? That's all we can do. And Gus seems to be doing fine. We're still kind of like trying to figure out how to navigate him because he's actually never been alone. Like he's has some like attachment issues. And so he's never been in the house by himself. We do have a crate, and he is definitely not happy about the crate, but he's okay with crate. So that's probably a good solution for when I do have to eventually leave him alone. I mean, he's not my emotional support animal, but I definitely am his emotional support animal. So I don't know, maybe if I need to have him fill out a form or something, but or I can just like, he's gonna be a purse dog. I don't know what's gonna happen, but no. But yeah, so that's something new that we have to figure out, but he's doing well, and I am really actually doing fine. It's just hard to talk about because it's just, you know, raw. But so let's talk about some goofy crafts and stuff, because, you know, we could all use the distraction. Garden is going well. Maybe I don't know how the lighting will cooperate, but maybe I'll go out there after I do my recording and just record a little bit, because what is it like, do blackberries have a mast here? What's happening? They're not ripe, but we have an insane amount of blackberries. Like, I'm both excited and a little bit like, oh. I'm not sure how we're gonna, I love making jam, but I don't really like eating jam that much, or certainly not that much, because there's a lot of blackberries out there. So I definitely will not be protecting them from the birds. Birds are gonna have a good time, I think, and there will still be more than enough for me. But we have cucumbers. The cucumbers are doing super great. I already have enough probably to do a batch of pickles, which I should probably do tomorrow, because I've just been like picking them and putting them in the crisper drawer, because I haven't had enough at once, because we're really early in the season still, and I only planted like 6 plants this year because I'm the only person who eats pickles in this house, and I actually kind of only like to pickle sweet pickles. Like, I've tried dills multiple times and have just not really enjoyed my results. So, but yeah, there's some peppers on the peppers. I need to weed. Usually, like, I do like raised beds, and so usually the plants I plant are robust enough that they kind of like make it so that you don't have to weed, like they grow up fast enough. But I've planted some peppers this year and they're sort of spindly, and I mean, they've got peppers on them, but they don't have a lot of like greenery on them. And so there's lots of weeds that have gotten around them and I need to go out and I don't mind a weed when it's like meaty weed, but this is like grass almost. It's not grass, but it's like almost like grass levels of weeds that I need to like go out and take care of, which is ridiculous. Sorry, I just touched my calf and it's really sore, and I was just like, is that a bruise? What the heck? Anyway, but potatoes are all like super growy. We've had some that have flowered, some that haven't. Tomatoes are looking robust. Don't have a ton of fruit on them yet, so we'll see how that goes. Every once in a while, just get like your conditions wrong, and the tomatoes will just grow like gangbusters, but not fruit a ton. I know that it's something to do with like nitrogen and like what. I don't care enough to find out. I just roll the dice. But yeah, so everything is going well. Dahlias are up, but they don't have, I only have one that has buds on it yet. But again, it is very early in June. And so yeah, we'll see how they do. But yeah, yay, that's a good thing. Laundry on the line, which is always nice. What else is going on? The team is home. They took their driving test and passed. We have a driver, another driver, and I am still with us and not chain smoking, so I think everything's going really well. But so that's been another thing that's been taking up a good amount of time, is just like lots of drive time. But it's been a good excuse to do some like sort of like day trippy stuff, which we haven't done for a long time. So that's been fun. We talked about going hiking and like all that. So like that, all that stuff has been really pleasant and enjoyable. But they're back at college for summer term. And yeah, things just keep on rolling on. Let's do crafty stuff. Okay. So in knitting, I finished my shoulder season. So this is a pattern by Shayna Lines, which is one of several of her patterns that I have knit. I've knit a couple of her recalibrate sweaters, but this is the first one I've knit that's shoulder season. So I don't know if you know recalibrate. That's the one that sort of has like that middle, it's all garter. It has that middle panel that's usually one color, and then it's usually striped, and the stripes run, the garter stitch runs vertically, so it has a vertical stripe in it. It's really cute and it's very fun to knit. It's sort of like knitting a shawl, like the pleasantness of knitting a shawl, but you get a sweater at the end, which is a great thing. And so I started this last season, and was actually last summer, and was actually completely done except for the sleeves, which that's the sleeve. But at the time I was thinking I wanted to elongate the sleeve and like make it short sleeve rather than cap sleeve. And so I had just stalled out, because you know how that is. I do that a lot when I'm trying to modify something or change something up, is that like with that sort of like the indecision that adds to the equation, I just kind of like lose all steam and sort of like have thought collapse, where I think of like 17 different ways I can do things and then can't decide on a path. Or when I do decide on the path, those other 16 ways that I could have done it are still milling around in there, and I have lots of doubt. And so it just stalls out my process. So I brought this out because, like, look at it. It's a great sweater, right? And like this color combination, this is Leadingman Fiber Arts Fingering Weight. And they have a shop sample in this exact same color scheme, except I think the shoulders are different. The shoulder is like a different brown, because I had this one, which I think is walnut. And I think maybe theirs is like slightly different. I don't know. I could be making that up. Because I bought this last June, the yarn for this. So anyway, so I apologize. I don't know what the colorway is, but they have a shop sample of it. So I'm sure if you just ask Steve and Andy, they'll be like, yes, it's XYZ. But it has this like, this is the fun texture on the front. So you get some like stockinette, reverse stockinette. And then the texture on the back is garter. And then you have this fun detail where you have like a slip stitch that rotates in. So you get like a fun little like detail where you get both textures showing. In the addition, you get like a nice diagonal, which is super fun to play with. But so I pulled it out again a couple nights ago and was like, you know what? It really does. I understand why I thought I needed it to be short sleeve rather than cap sleeve last year. I was having some like, sorry, my husband is playing video games with headphones on and forgets that he doesn't have an inner monologue, but only has an exterior monologue because he doesn't actually think he doesn't have an inner monologue, but he does not have an inner monologue. So you'll hear some. But anyway, what was I thinking? Oh, so I was like having some like weird body arms, fat lady arm stuff. Here's your fat lady arm exposure. Fat lady arms are fine. But sometimes you let society whisper in your ear a little too much and you get kind of self-conscious and then you have to battle back. So I was having this moment where I was having, but I've battled back and so I'm okay again. Well, actually I was always okay, but this way I don't have to knit sleeves on my sweaters. I can just knit them like Shayna tells me, which is much more pleasant. So I just finished up. I just put the ribbing on like she told me to. And I'll put a picture of it on my body, hopefully if I remember, here. So here is my finished shoulder season. Thank you for being patient as I'm wearing a house bra and not outside the house bra. But you know, just imagine my boob adipose lifted higher slightly. Or not. Whatever. Don't imagine my boob adipose. Never mind. Here's my sweater. Why can't I shut up? So here it is. Yay! This is, again, I'm not styling it because I'm lazy and sad. It's just with yoga pants. But I'll try to remember to like take an actual picture of it on my actual body with maybe something cute and post it on Ravelry or something. But yeah. So again, that is Shoulder Season by Shayna Lines Design. It's a fingering weight sweater. I think mine took a skein and a mini skein, if I'm not mistaken, for the body itself. And I may have made it slightly, I don't know. Did I make it shorter than she did? I don't know. It was last year, y'all. Mine is approximately 12 inches from the underarm to the hem. So there you go. But so yeah, and let's see how wide mine is. Mine is laying it flat with a little bit of stretch. It is about 50 inches in circumference. So that's without, and that's like minimal. It can stretch way bigger. So that's just to give you an idea if that's bad. So I'm pretty sure I used a skein and a mini skein and then less than a mini skein for the shoulder and the neckline. So yay, there's that. And then as I discussed, like I was, I have another project, that Balshan sweater that I was working on that I'm trying to modify a little bit, the sleeve. And so I have really combination, right? I've had a little bit of like blues, and then working on picking that up, I will knit like 2 rows on the sleeve and then just like put it down. So it might just need a minute. And I decided that what I should do, which is a good thing for me anyway, when I am feeling like lack of mojo, momentum, what have you, in knitting, is that I should pick like a small project that requires a good amount of attention. And that seems to help me quite a lot get sort of like some more enjoyment out of my knitting. So I went to look for a stuffy, and Claire Garland, who is Dot Pebbles Knits, has just released her Triceratops. And so I have to make that. Now, if you don't know, Claire Garland knits, she does very affordable patterns. I think this one is like £3 British. And lots of times she offers them, like if you subscribe to her newsletter, she'll offer them for free on like Fridays. I don't know if it's every Friday or if it's just like one Friday a month. She offers a free one, whatever. She offers lots of them free, but even if they're not free, they're like super reasonably priced. Like too reasonable. But the thing is, they are knit flat and there is a lot of seaming, which is not my favorite. But this little fellow was so charming, I couldn't help it. So he's not done, but here he is so far. So I am knitting mine with Brooklyn Tweed. This is, I don't think this is Button Jar. This is the Fingering Weight Shelter or Loft. It might be Button Jar though, because it is kind of greenish. Kind of green, kind of bluish. Anyway, it's one of those colors. And then some Ralma Finnegarn in colorway 406 or 516. Which one of those is the color? Which one of those is the dial-out? I'm not sure. But this will be like his beak and his like frill bits. And there's something else I think that's that lighter color, although I could be wrong. Oh, and his little horns. Do you see how charming his little horns are? Let's see if we can focus. Right. So charming. So, if you've not worked with Brooklyn Tweed Shelter or Loft, they are a woolen spun yarn and they pull apart pretty easily. So I'm not using this for seaming. For seaming it, I am using this Jamieson and Smith FC11 mix, which the seaming pretty much all should disappear, but even if it doesn't, the Brooklyn Tweed has like little like nubs in it and nips in it, so they kind of, it just blends in. So yeah, like you can see a tiny bit on my seaming, this yarn showing through, but it's not noticeable. Also, that's literally the underside of the dinosaur. But so yeah, it's definitely fiddly knitting. Like right now I'm gonna have to seam up. This is his front leg and then like flatten out his little foot, but whatever, we'll see how he looks because he is very charming. So anyway, so that's one of the things I do if I'm having a bit of a knitting slump. I have also cast on a project, and so this is the Nexus sweater by Natasha Hornby, Natasja Hornby, and you may have seen on the social medias, La Bien-Aimée made one that is like her beautiful yellow and cream, and then like the contrasting is like a hot pink. It's so cute. But it's a fingering weight sweater. This like sleeve detail is all slip stitch. And so from Stash, I am working with Quince & Company's Turn. So it's 75% American wool, 25% silk. And this is colorway Dusk. And then for my cream color, I am using Knit Picks palette. And it's definitely a color. I don't know, dude. I've somehow ripped off the thing. It's this color. Whatever. It's off-white. But I've just started, and look, it is very cute so far. Right? Won't that be cute? And it's actually giving me like super flashback vibes. When I was living with my roommate in my like 20s, she had a baby and I made the baby like overall romper. So I guess just overalls. I don't know why I felt like them. because romper's a fun word, I guess. And it was this purple and cream, like the main color was purple, and then the little bib was like color work purple and white. And so it's giving me, I'm like having like a little bit of a flashback vibe to Lydia's overalls from like 20 years ago. 22 years ago. Oh my gosh, time! So that is what I am knitting on. And then quilting, I haven't been quilting very much at all, but I did sort of like almost finish my crazy patchwork bag. All I need to do is put the handles on it. And the reason I'm sort of stalled out is I think I am going to try like a Chicago screw for the leather handles, because I would like to start doing some more of this style bag again. This is, for example, one that I sold. But I really love the rivets for them, but also it would be nice if folks could put them in the washing machine. And one way I could do that is to make the handles attached with Chicago screws, which are removable. So I don't know, I might just do an experiment to see how I like those. The reason I didn't do them originally is because they can come unscrewed, and that can be very annoying. But I don't know, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. That's why I'm going to try it out on this one. But so here's the size. These patches are by Addie B Studio. She does great block printed patches. And then I did all the hand stitching on it. Isn't it cute? So yeah, and then the inside is just canvas with some pockets. So yeah, there's that. And then in stitching, I have really struggled not to buy 8,000 cross stitching things. You know, like sometimes you just want that very easy dopamine hit of buying something, and that's really a bad idea in a slow retail month for yourself. And adulting, it is so overrated. But so yeah, I have really struggled. Maybe I should show you two of the patterns I bought, because they are so charming. But anyway, so I've been stitching on this fella. So it doesn't really look like I've gotten that much progress, I think, since the last time I showed you, but I have started working on this side more and added a different color. But yeah, it is still really cute. I've decided that I really like cross stitch when something is underground or underwater, but it just shows up like a weird cross section. I really like that. I mean, it makes sense. Like, I love all cross stitch. I love all cross sections in children's books that are illustrations, like, you know, in the Berenstain Bears, where they show you the cross section of the house and like the kids' rooms and the steps, and then of course Brambly Hedge. The cross section is so good. I love a children's illustration cross stitch or cross section. Don't talk about cross sections and cross stitch in the same segment, because your brain gets real confused, y'all. So if you have a favorite children's illustration that's a cross section, could you post on Instagram and tag me? I'm VFATSQRRL, and that would be such a nice treat for me. If you just happen, like, don't go to any trouble. Okay, go to like a reasonable amount of trouble, like this much trouble. If you want to. You don't have to. If you want to, I would accept this much trouble that you go to. Because I would love to see, because I'm sure there's so many I don't know about, or like so many that I'll be like, ah, dude, Richard Scarry had to have some cross sections, right? Like, that would be wrong. I know that there are some out there, but I didn't really get a lot of Richard Scarry books for the kiddo. We had a game that was Richard Scarry, but anyway, so yeah, that would be such a delight. It's my birthday month. That would be such a nice birthday gift. By the way, thank you. Some people have sent me birthday cards, which I was not expecting, and kind of forgot that it was my birthday month. And it was a very nice treat. Oh my gosh. And some of the patrons who are on Discord also sent me lovely messages because I let them know when Annie, well, I'd asked for some good dog health wishes and then had to update folks when it didn't go well. So anyway, so I just thank you all. Whether or not the things arrived in the physical world or the beautiful psychic world, I receive your positive vibes and they are very much appreciated. But yeah, what is this? What are we doing? What is this thing? Oh my Lord. So this is Scary Sampler by Heartstring Samplery. And oh my gosh, thank you so much. Last time I was like looking at it while we were talking, I was like, wait, what are these numbers? And one of your beautiful faces was like, oh yeah, those are the numbers from Lost. And then 42, they answered everything. But there's actually like a description. There wasn't a description where I bought it, and those are very hard to see. But then when I opened it up, because I photocopied the chart so that I could mark off as I finish what I'm doing. But there's also like a description of all of the like little pop referencey things that are in it, pop culture references, and I was like, oh. So thank you for telling me that. I'm not sure how pop culture-y the person that it's going to is. So there might be some editing. I'm not sure, like, you know, there's the Star Wars. Like, I might actually just turn that into a moon. Although I do really like the pterodactyls because just like, hi. But, and like these are clearly and I thought these were, but these are the flower from Stranger Things. But like, for example, like there's like a little, I didn't even notice that there was this like little alien head in the foliage. So I'm going to edit that one out because I just don't love it as much. But anyway, but like I'll keep the Weeping Angel because it feels like it works well. But there's like a Men in Black bug on this tree, so I might remove the bug. But there is a Beetlejuice snake, and like that must stay. So anyway, it'd be silly and fun to play around with it. Yeah. That's not the right thing. But yeah, so there it is so far. I'm using all the called for threads and the called for linen, which is crazy because on that it looks so different. And not just the linen, the thread as well. Okay, and then I did cast on, what do you call it? I don't know. I started another stitchery. This is a pattern that my mom actually gave me. It's called Riley Harbor, and it's by Kathy Barrick. And again, I guess a whale. I love it. And so it calls for NPS silks or NPI. This is NPS here, but I think they also call them NPI. Whatever. But I had like a cast on emergency and I had to get stuff. And the only sort of like needlepoint cross stitch shop in the city does not carry, well, the only like, that's their thing, shop. They don't carry those. They carry the swad. Blah, 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 blah. And so I just did some substitutions and just tried to do my best on things that I thought would work. Swadelger. So they look like this. And this is 8 or 6. I can't remember. Well, you don't care that much. And like I realized like, oh, I had convinced myself fairly recently that if I was gonna do something like this is not a huge project. It's not like a reproduction sampler. I convinced myself that I was gonna do one of these. I would just use DMCs because the silks are solid. And like, it's not like an heirloomy kind of piece. Nothing that I'm doing to do is heirloomy, but you know what I mean? Like, so I was like, I'll just do the DMCs, but for some reason I was just, and I forgot that that was the rule that I told myself. So I went out and bought these silks. Crazy. And then I ended up actually ordering a couple because I really liked the color of these little houses a lot. And the colorway name was ochre, which made me feel like I really love ochre. And so this that I had was like this, which is a little bit more golden. And so I did order the needlepoint ink silks in the yellow ochre. And they are so close, but to me, they are not the same. Like you can see that one of them is like fractionally more green. I needed it to be fractionally more green. I don't see why that's crazy at all. I have issues. So I did order those, and the darker one is, that's the lighter of the three. So the darker one is like more greeny, even greeny browny. It's a little boggier, and as we all know, I'm a bog expert because I live in the bog. And oh my gosh, thank you to so many of you who are also bog people. I did not realize how many of us were bog people. And so it is always a comfort to know that even though our bogs might not be adjacent, they might not be interconnected, it's always helpful to know that so many of my bog brethren are out there. And I really appreciated hearing from you. I haven't even shown you how much I did. Oh my gosh. So this is mine so far. I really enjoy cross-stitching tiny houses. They're kind of my favorite. Right? This is going to be a tree. That's going to be a bird. That little black bit there. I mean, I clearly made the right decision on getting that ochre because that's what these houses are. Just saying. It's definitely worth ordering that. It is interesting too, like I've just not done a lot of work. I've not done any work with silk. I've done one project that was silk, but it was all one color and it was a dye. It was like an over dyed silk. So it's a totally different animal. And so I am glad that even though I had told myself I would only use the DMCs on these kinds of things, I'm not terribly upset that I tried the silks because it is a good place to experiment a little bit with them. And these two, to see like how these two are different from one another. The Soie de blah blah blah, the one that's not NPS, the Soie d'Alger, is definitely shinier and a little bit thicker, I think, even though just using one strand. That one strand is a little bit beefier than the NPS silk. So, and they're very similar in price. I think there's like 50 cents difference, but they are. I mean, they're not expensive because we're knitters. And like every project we do costs a gajillion dollars. So they're really not, they're not like $2 gajillion. But they are like, I think a skein of DMC is 66 cents lots of places. And a skein of the silk is like $5 lots of places. So if you're getting into something that's going to have like a lot of different colors, the price can escalate quickly. This one didn't have a ton of different colors. You can say like, just like that list. But I will show you two of the patterns. I only bought 2 patterns. I say like, I'm going to show you 2 of the patterns. I bought 15. I'm just going to show you the 2 patterns I bought and I'll be right back. I'm not a professional floss tuber, so I also forgot to say what fabric I was using. The pattern calls for 40 count autumn gold from Lakeside Linens, but I am using the color Scout from Live on Little, I guess. And it's a 36 count. This was, my mother gave me the fabric when she gave me the pattern. So I think it's Live on Little in the colorway Scout. So anyway, so there's that. And then this is a pattern that's been around for a very long time, or at least I think it's, well, the patterns themselves have been, the Village of Hawk Run, right? There's like a Halloween one, there's an autumn at Hawk Run Hollow, there's several that are in this vein. So I'm not sure when this one was published, but it's the Hawk Run Hollow series have been around for a long time. And I have wanted to do one for a very long time, but I just sort of like hemmed and hawed. And then finally I was like, oh, just do it. I'll just buy the pattern. And then, okay, so quite frankly, so I had to buy those colors of ochre that I needed. And so I was like, well, I might as well make this shipping worth it. Hi. Not an animal. So I was actually going to just buy this whole like kit to just start it because hi, I'm sad. And I put all the flosses in my cart because the original one is silks. It's needlepoint silk. And I put them all in my cart. It was like $175. And I was like, oh, well, that's a little bit more than I wanted to spend. Because it does have like a million colors. Like, look how many colorways there are in this little doodad. And in fact, I actually didn't, you know what? It was actually more than that because that was actually this one. So I also bought the Alexanders of Lintrofen 1829 sampler from Hands Across the Sea because it's so bananas. Like, I love all these historical samplers, but so many of them have biblical stuff on them, which I'm not opposed to, but I don't know that I really want it. You know what I mean? I mean, that's silly to be like, I'm not opposed. I'm like, you do you. Like, whatever you want to stitch, you want to stitch. I don't know that I want to stitch biblical stuff because it's not, whatever. I just don't know if that's what I want to do. But look at this one. Like, this one's bananas. Isn't that fun? Like, do you see these little people? What is happening? What is this bird? I am going to marry this bird. We're now engaged. He does have an inner monologue. But like, look how, and the colors are really bizarre for a sampler. So I'm jazzed about it. So this is actually the one that I put in the cart that I was like, oh, this is gonna be $75. So I have no idea how much this one is because do you know how many colors there are? Okay, now just for science, I have to figure it out. Okay, the Hawk Run one is 54 different colors. So that's like $270 if you use the silks. Which again, I am super jazzed for you if that's what you want to do. But that's not what I want to do. But anyway, I do really love this color so hard. So that one may end up being that color. I don't, it's just hard to tell too because the photography is so weird in cross stitch. Because like I showed you on that one, that's the like the little skeleton under the ground one. Those are the exact called fors, and that picture doesn't look anything like mine. So I don't know. There needs to be some color balancing rules. What were we even talking about? Oh, just me being like, oh my goodness, that's a lot of flosses. It's like, but you know what? I'm actually super glad that it has that many colors because it just makes the decision for me. And it's also like another thing is like, yeah, like if you were going to knit like 6 of these things, because there are like a million of them. Okay, there's not a million. There's like 5 or 6 of them. They probably all use the same flosses. And so you would be using like the same for all of them because you know, you're not going to use a whole skein of any of those. I'm just talking now. What else is this podcast but me talking? Okay. But The other thing I think that I had kind of stalled on is that these are stitched on 40 count, and I don't know that I want to stitch on 40 count. So, but now I'm fine being like, oh no, I can just stitch on 36. That's totally okay with me. So, anyway, Village of Hawk Run Hollow. Cute. Ooh, so enjoyable. And again, this bananas hands across the sea one. I need to figure out more about this style of sampler because it is so unusual. And there's like lots of weird little whatever. It's enjoyable. I'll stop talking about it now. So that's all my crafting. Dun, da, 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 crafting. Okay, so what am I watching? What am I reading? So I've been watching lots of comfort TV. And for me right now, that's the BritBox subscription. And I've been watching Make It at Market, which is where they like talk to two folks who have sort of like a fledgling maker's business. So it might be wood turning, it might be pottery, it might be embroidery. And they have an expert in their field talk to them about what they can do to sort of like either launch their business or help a very small business kind of grow. So that's been very delightful. And then I have been watching Escape to the Country, even though it sometimes alternates between making me very like content and cozy and then also very sad because everything is so expensive. But the counter to that is a new to me show called Cheap Irish Houses. Have you seen this? I've never seen it before. So it's a person, a family, a couple, and they want to move to the Irish countryside. Well, apparently, I didn't know this. And okay, I'm going to speak about this as somebody who doesn't know what she's talking about. Okay, so I am not a source. Do not cite me. Apparently, Ireland has like a glut of abandoned houses because these houses in the countryside are the type of construction that they were or are is such that like making changes to them is very difficult. They have a lot of issues with damp. I would love to know how many times the word damp is used in each of these episodes because it's like 8 trillion. So they have like lots of water problems, and whether that's rising damp, I didn't even know that was a thing, whether it's damp along the chimney or whether it's like roof dampness or just like mysterious damp. Sometimes the damp is just like a damp that no one knows where it comes from. But anyway, they're just more expensive to renovate, to redo, than it is to just build a new home. And so, and I think the other thing is that a lot of them are very similar construction. So I don't know, again, don't cite me. So a lot of them are very similar construction to one another. So there must have just sort of been this like housing explosion at some point, like in the 50s or something, where they just built a lot of the same house like everywhere and then maybe didn't do the greatest job with them. And so they're just derelict now. Like they're abandoned. They're, you know, it looks like a lot of them, I guess, because a lot of them have furniture in them when they go see them. Okay, so sorry. This show, they go and they see like 3 houses per person. And unlike Escape to the Country, where they're like real serious about like being like, did you put an offer in? And like lots of times at the end of the show, they'll tell you like, oh, Jimmy and Jane, or Jane and Mary, found that they didn't like any of the houses on Hog Street on Kent, and they are waiting until or something. They did put an offer in or whatever. This isn't like that. This is like literally they're just showing them the houses, and I have no idea if any of them buy them. But the houses are wild. And not wild, I don't mean wild like, oh, they're just so interesting and different. Because again, lots of them are very similar. But they all, like, almost all of them look like somebody walked out of them like 40 years ago. And then just, because like a lot of them have furnishings in them. They look like they're not emptied out and then like abandoned and like made into like a cow shed or something. They really do look, and I guess that happens because a lot of them were like they would keep them because they were just like they were on family land or whatever, and so they were already there, and they would keep them as like a vacation home to come back to after kids had moved to the city for employment. And then just like over time, like maybe the grandparents of the original farmhouse passed away, and then that got sold, and then like there was just like less impetus to like go back and visit and stay in this little house, and so it just kind of like gets left and is, lots of them are like open to the weather. Anyway, it's wild. But it is a nice counter to Escape to the Country, because Escape to the Country is like Mary and Jane have $500,000, and you're just like, oh, that's really great for them. But this one, it's like they have $150,000, and you're like, oh, that's still a very lot of money, but like it feels like it's in the realm of something that could happen. You know what I mean? Okay, so then in nonfiction, I have finished reading The Age of Magical Overthinking, Notes on Modern Irrationality by Amanda Montell. I talked a bit ago about her book Cultish. From the best-selling author of Cultish and host of the podcast Sounds Like a Cult, a delicious blend of cultural criticism and personal narrative that explores our cognitive biases and the power, disadvantages, and highlights of magical thinking. Utilizing the linguistic insights of her witty and brilliant first book, Word Slut, and the sociological explorations of her breakout hit Cultish, Amanda Montell now turns her erudite eye to the inner workings of the human mind and its biases in her most personal and electrifying work yet. Electrifying feels like an oversell. Settle down. Magical thinking can be broadly defined as the belief that one's internal thoughts can affect unrelated events in the external. Think of the conviction that one can manifest their way out of poverty, stave off cancer with positive vibes, thwart the apocalypse by learning to can their own peaches. That totally works. Or transform it. Has there been an apocalypse? No. Or transform unhealthy relationships into a glorious one with loyalty alone. In all its forms, magical thinking works in service of restoring agency amid chaos. But in the age of magical overthinking, Montell argues that in the modern information age, our brains' coping mechanisms have been overloaded and our irrationality turned up to an 11. In a series of razor-sharp, deeply funny chapters, Montell delves into a cornucopia of the cognitive biases that run rampant in our brains, from the halo effect cultivates worship and hatred of larger-than-life celebrities to how the sunk cost fallacy can keep us in detrimental relationships long after we've realized that they're not serving us. As she illuminates these concepts with her signature brilliance and wit, Montell's prevailing message is one of hope, empathy, and ultimately forgiveness for our anxiety-addled human selves. If you have all but lost faith in your ability to reason, Montell aims to make some sense of the senseless, to crack open a window in our minds and let a warm breeze in, to help quiet the cacophony for a while, or even hear a melody in it. I did like this one better than Cultish. It's definitely not like new or cutting edge material, but I do think it was a good sort of like it's a good place to have these things collected. And what I mean by things is like all of these like thought processes that are probably detrimental to us and the people around us. Like I've heard of all of these things before, but it was great to have them all in one place. And so I think for that, like, and again, okay, so here's all the different concepts and they're by chapter. So halo effect, proportionality bias, sunk cost fallacy, zero-sum bias, survivorship bias, recency illusion, overconfidence bias, illusory truth effect, confirmation bias, declinism, and the IKEA effect. So I think the only one of these I hadn't heard of is the recency illusion. But I had never seen them all in one place or in a place that was simply focusing on these concepts. And so for that thing, I think it was really useful, again, especially like as we're trying to examine the media that we're consuming and to sort of like protect ourselves from the amount of information that we're receiving and to try to like keep something in ourselves true, that it's not necessarily influenced by all of that stuff without having to retreat entirely from the world. I just think I enjoyed having them sort of all in one place. And I enjoyed her perspective on each of them. Again, some of them have an anecdote, some of them have a personal story. I don't think anything is new or cutting edge, but I did enjoy her perspective on all of them. It was I listened to it on audiobook and it's read by the author. I enjoy her reading quite a lot. And so I think it was just like a very palatable place to have all of those things in one place. And so I enjoyed it. Again, that's The Age of Magical Overthinking by Amanda Montell, read by the author. And then the other nonfiction book I finished reading was Birding Under the Influence, Cycling Across America in Search of Birds and Recovery by Dorian Anderson. And I did listen to the audiobook. It was narrated by Madison Niederhauser. Yeah, it's just interesting. Sorry, I'm just like looking at the review of this one versus The Age of Magical Overthinking, and they're very different books, right? Like, totally different books. But it is interesting. I read some of the reviews on Goodreads, for example, of Magical Overthinking. There are a lot of people like throwing shade at the author, like for not being, for the book not being what they thought it was going to be. And like, I totally get that. Like, I've definitely had that experience a lot, but I don't know if it's just like how her books are advertised, or if it's some sort of like weird misogyny, like effect. But it seems like people can be really critical of that author. And again, I don't know. Like, I don't actually know the hubbub. I don't know her press machine. I don't know anything around the books. I read them because a book talk person that I enjoy recommended them. So I guess I just didn't go in with those expectations, and I've not listened to her podcast, etc., etc. But there's a lot of like, this person thinks that she's an expert on stuff and she's not, or like, this person feels like again, there's just a lot of like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And then like, also like, who does she think she is sort of comments on on reviews, which is, again, just take it with a grain of salt. But it is interesting because like, compared to this other book, Burning Under the Influence, like this book has a much higher rating, but I actually thought it was like less interesting and less compelling, even though the material could have been like 5 stars for me. I was just like, it's okay. But anyway, everybody's bringing something different to the table when they're reading a book and then like talking about why they like it or didn't like it. So to be clear, I did like this book. It's about a gentleman who, it's about a gentleman. It's about a fella who, struggles with addiction. He is, I can't remember now if he's actively in Alcoholics Anonymous, but anyway, he is, at the time of the cycling and birding journey, he has been sober for X amount of time. So he is like living a sober lifestyle. He has struggled with addiction and continues to struggle with addiction, but is on a sober path at the time of the writing of this book. And he decides that he is going to, it's not his like sober, like it's not like, oh, I'm getting sober and doing this at the same time. He's gotten sober and then like something happens with he is an academic and he is doing this like very intense like microbiology, I want to say, and it's not correct, but some sort of like cellular biology thing. And then like finds out that like his premise data was incorrect, and so essentially he like has to scrap like all this intense work, and he just like, certain these things kind of all come together, and he just decides that he is gonna go do a big birding year. So like a big year, which is where you go, and sometimes you do it by state, and sometimes you do it by county, and sometimes you do it by the country, and sometimes you do it by the world. But you actually try to see as many bird species as you can in the year. And so he decides to do a big birding year, but to do it without petroleum. So he does it all bike or paddle or walk. And so it's his journey across the U.S. To see as many bird species as he can. So it's the combination of that it's the combination of some stories of people that he kind of meets and interacts with along the way. And it's also like sort of like bumping back into his past to talk about his struggles with addiction, his path to sobriety, and so it's all of that together. So it's that. And I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it's one of these things where like I know that birding is not the same thing as doing a big year. So like right, like a big year is like the professional end of it, right? Like, so it's not like you're just like strolling in the woods and like observing bird behavior and enjoying the serenity of it. It's like you're going and you're checking off, like, I need to see this and this and this, and like I need to time it this way, and oh, there's a migrant over here that shouldn't be here, and like I'm gonna go see that so I can add another bird to my list and get my numbers and numbers and numbers. And I don't really enjoy that. Like I don't it doesn't appeal to me. I shouldn't say that I don't enjoy it, but it doesn't appeal to me. So I know that like that's not the same as like, well, everybody's approach to everything is different, right? Like there are some people who just are birders who do the same thing, right? They just like drive to a place that there's going to be a bird. They hop out, they see it, they snap a picture, and then they're done. That's not as appealing to me as like observing behavior or like happening upon a bird or learning about the bird and like what it does and like where it's come from and what, all that stuff. But that is part of the ability to do these big years, right? Like you have to know like what kind of vegetation this bird likes, or like what kind of like environment that this bird wants to be in, and like how the storms off the coast of Texas are going to affect its migration pattern. So like that's part of it. It's just like, so like that's all supporting the ability to do a big year or the ability to do these like big bird counts. But I don't know, it doesn't excite me. Like I don't get excited by the idea of like crossing off as many species. I like the idea of a life list. Like that's exciting to me. Like, oh, like over my whole life I've been able to see these many birds. But again, that's just like personal preference. It also feels like a big year is a very male thing. Not that it's only men, but it does feel like it's a more, again, just, it feels like it's a more male-centered phenomenon. Not that it's exclusively so, but I don't know what I'm talking about. Don't cite me. Making stuff up. That's what we're doing. We're having coffee. We're just talking casually. Anyway, Birding Under the Influence by Dorian Anderson. Okay, and so then the rest of what I have read has been fiction. So I finished How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin, and that is narrated by Alexandra Dowling and Jay Jacobs, I want to say. For fans of Knives Out and The Thursday Murder Club, an enormously fun mystery about a woman who spends her entire life trying to prevent her foretold murder only to be proven right 60 years later when she is found dead in her sprawling country estate. Now it's up to her great niece to catch the killer. It's 1965 and teenage Frances Adams is at an English country fair with her two best friends, but Frances's night takes a hairpin turn when a fortune teller makes a bone-chilling prediction. One day Frances will be murdered. Frances spends a lifetime trying to solve a crime that hasn't happened yet, compiling dirt on every person who crosses her path in an effort to prevent her own demise. For decades, no one takes Frances seriously until nearly 60 years later when Frances is found murdered like she always said she would be. In the present day, Annie Adams has been summoned to a meeting at the sprawling country estate of her wealthy and reclusive great-aunt Frances. By the time Annie arrives in the quaint English village of Castle Knoll, by the time she arrives, Frances is already dead. Annie is determined to catch the killer, but thanks to Frances's lifelong habit of digging up secrets and lies, It seems every endearing and eccentric villager might just have been a motive for her murder. Can Annie safely unravel the dark mystery at the heart of Castle Knoll, or will dredging up the past throw her into the path of a killer? As Annie gets closer to the truth and closer to the danger, she starts to fear she might inherit her aunt's fate instead of her fortune. I don't know that for fans of Knives Out and Thursday Murder Club, this is not, I don't know, maybe it's, I did not find this to be humorous at all. And I think one of the veins of both of those is some, even if it's dry, like maybe the humor was so dry that I didn't get it. I think I would have. But I did enjoy it. I would say that if you're listening to it on audiobook, I did have a bit of trouble because it goes back and forth in time, and it's not immediately clear. But like, again, part of that's because I'm usually doing something else while I'm listening to an audiobook. So that was a slight problem for me, not insurmountable by any stretch of the imagination, because people have very different names, and the names weren't confusingly similar to me. But it did have a little bit of like, wait, what? How to Solve Your Own Murder, Kristen Perrin. I enjoyed it. And so the next book is Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth, narrated by Jessica Clark. Sisters, secrets, love, and murder. Sally Hepworth's new novel has it all. For as long as they can remember, Jessica, Nora, and Alicia have been told how lucky they are. As young girls, they were rescued from family tragedies and raised by a loving foster mother, Miss Fairchild, on an idyllic farming estate, and given an elusive second chance at a happy family life. But their childhood wasn't the fairy tale everyone thinks it was. Miss Fairchild had rules. Miss Fairchild could be unpredictable, and Miss Fairchild was never, ever to be crossed. In a moment of desperation, the three broke away from Miss Fairchild and thought they were free. Even though they never saw her again, she was always somewhere in the shadows of their minds. When a body is discovered under the home they grew up in, the foster sisters find themselves thrust into the spotlight as key witnesses, or are they prime suspects? A thrilling page-turner of sisterhood, secrets, love, and murder by New York Times bestselling author Sally Hepworth. It's a thriller. It's enjoyable. Thriller. I don't know, maybe thriller is too strong a word, but whatever. It's a twisty-turny. It's fun. It's enjoyable. Good beachy read. Good summer read. That's Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. I also finished reading A Generation of Vipers by Sarah Yarwood Lovett, and that is narrated by Kristen Atherton. This is a Nell Ward mystery. This is number 4. A killer is hiding in plain sight like a snake in the long grass. When Dr. Nell Ward stumbles across a woman's body amongst the purple heather of Furze Heath, she was on the lookout for... That was me being like, I listened to this book and I don't remember what this word is. Furze Heath. She was on the lookout for nests of poisonous adders, but something is lurking out there far more dangerous than vipers. A cold-blooded killer is on the loose, and this is not his first victim. As D.I. James Clark begins to investigate, a pattern emerges pointing towards this being the work of a serial killer. Every victim shares the same physical characteristics, all of which are a match to Nell herself. As Nell is pulled into a tightly coiled mystery, she can't help feeling someone is tracking her every move. Can she unmask the murderer before they strike again? So again, this is the 4th in a series of mysteries. Nell Ward is an ecologist, and so she does like bat surveys and reptile surveys and reptile relocations. She is, of course, independently wealthy. She's an heiress. She's titled. So she just works for the enjoyment of it. She's still a likable character, but like I do get frustrated with these, like, it's like a television show where all the people are wealthy enough that they don't have to have jobs because it's like just easier to tell a story if like people don't have to go to work, but also like people have to go to work. But that's my own personal thing. But it is still enjoyable. And it doesn't feel like, even though she is like a central character, it's not like she's not the only character. And yeah, there I've read this is the first one I've listened to. I read the other three like as my nighttime reading. And I stopped reading them because like they just, I don't know, the pace was weird or something in like reading it in that way, because like lots of times I read a book for like, you know, 20-30 minutes before I go to sleep. And so the pace was weird, I think, for me in that way, but I did enjoy reading them, or excuse me, I did enjoy listening to them much more than I enjoyed reading them. So I think I'll actually probably go back and listen to the other ones. And there is a fifth one out. There might be more out, but my library has 1 through 5. So yeah, that is A Generation of Vipers by Sarah Yarwood Lovett. And then that's all for tonight, for today. It's almost tonight. And I'm starting to get itchy. Anyway, okay, I'll stop talking. All right, so thanks for bearing with me through some tears. I really appreciate all of y'all. I appreciate the support that I really do feel like buoyed by y'all so often. But yeah, if you're having a time where you just really want to sit in a corner and wear some like compression sleeves, like I also feel you. And I might not understand, but I can sort of understand. Anyway, before we get weepy and weird again, yeah, that's all for this time, and I'll talk to you later.